Here's the core equation for what creates the impossible. So we have the identity expansion times the emotional coherence times the interpretation shift times the behavior alignment. So this is the ultimate formula here for what the impossible is. This means that to break through what feels impossible, you need all of these different pieces here working together. Let's look at the identity field. Your identity sets the size of the container that can hold on to your new possibilities. And your emotions are the energy that are driving your signal. When they're coherent and aligned, they supercharge your ability to create. And then we look at the impossible zone. This is where the magic happens here, okay? Magic happens. Now, this is where your identity, your emotions, and interpretations shift coverage to crack open what once felt impossible. And the probability field, this is where your actions and your beliefs turn possibility into reality, where what you expect starts showing up in your life. And if any of these fields here, in terms of your identity, your emotions, and the probability, if any of these feel out of whack or are incoherent, then the impossible feels like an unbreakable wall. But when all of these align in terms of your identity, your emotions, the probability, right? And you're in this sweet spot, the impossible zone, quote unquote, right? When all of these align, the impossible becomes the inevitable. So remember, the impossible only exists at your current identity level. And when you expand your identity and you align with your emotions, you shift your interpretations and act consistently in accordance with your identity and take action consistently. Once this happens, then everything that you thought was impossible starts to become your new normal. Think about this in terms of making a monthly income, right? Maybe you are making $3,000 or $4,000 a month, whatever it may be, and then you want to make $10,000 a month, right? This is the impossible zone. You're like, I don't know if I could ever even make $10,000 a month. I don't know what that consists of, right? It's not even in the realm of possibility. Like, it's outside of my, chain of awareness. It's only impossible because you haven't aligned all of these three together in terms of your identity, in terms of seeing yourself making $10,000 a month, and then having your emotions, okay? Your emotions all be connected. And then in the probability field, in terms of expecting, okay? Expecting the 10K, right? Which then leads into your impossible zone in terms of what you once thought was impossible now becomes normal, right? Because then once you start making that 10K a month, it's just a normal thing for you, right? You don't even think about it. Where before, when you were making less, you're like, man, if I can just get the 10K, one, you're never going to get fully satisfied, and you shouldn't, because you always want to continue to grow and expand. But two, it's just going to be a new normal for you. You're not even going to think about it. It's just going to be, it is what it is, 10K. And when you can start to embody that, right? That's what makes the biggest difference here. Okay, so now let's dive into what the impossible actually means. I want to dive deeper into this. So let's go to the board here and let's erase it here. Okay, so what impossible, quote unquote, actually means? Let me go right here, right in the middle. So what the impossible actually means, we've got a question mark there. So what this ultimately means here, impossible equals outside of your current operating system, so your internal OS. And then the possible equals inside your expanded internal operating system, right? Everything that we do in terms of the identity that we have, the beliefs that we have, the interpretations, the emotions, the behaviors, all of those are running internal operating systems, right? You have a certain system of how you process your emotions in terms of when things happen to you, whether you attach positive meanings right? And then whether you take action on a certain event or circumstance or not take any action, right? All of these are systems, patterns that are being ran. And I like to look at them in terms of internal operating systems, because once you understand that everything is just really a system being ran, there's structure and there's frameworks around it, you can see the patterns in those and then make the necessary corrections, right? So the impossible is everything outside of your current internal operating system, and then the possible is everything inside your expanded internal operating system. And with the impossible, it's not an external fixed thing. It's not a fixed quality of the external world, right? It's not out there in terms of a wall and it's just impossible to go over, overcome, right? Overstep. It's not this external thing. It's simply a reflection of your internal operating system's capacity and capabilities and the limits that you've set for yourself. Because reality itself is neutral, right? It doesn't have its own thoughts, its own opinions in terms of like, oh, this person's a bad person, I'm going to make sure that he has negative frequency or just negative things happen to him. And this guy or this gal, because they're more attractive, right? We're going to give them better opportunities. We're going to give them better situations, circumstances. That's not how things work. It's your mind and the identity that creates the boundaries around what you believe is possible or impossible. Your beliefs act like filters, and they're shaping what you believe is doable or out of reach. When you have limiting beliefs like, I'm not smart enough, I'm not an entrepreneur, entrepreneurship and making money and success is for others. These limiting beliefs are the ones creating the invisible barriers. And you think about somebody who's wanting to make more money. They consciously want to increase their income, but they have a really deep-rooted belief that money is scarce, that they're not good with money, that they're not entrepreneurs or business owners. So then all of the opportunities that come their way, they're essentially creating a mental block, a invisible barrier for them to not see them because they're not open to them. Because deeply rooted in their internal system, right, their belief systems say that money is scarce, money doesn't grow on trees, and I am not an entrepreneur or somebody who could make that type of money. And in order to change that limiting belief, they first must identify what exactly is that specific limiting belief, and then shift that core belief through affirmations, journaling, and taking small micro actions that convince, right, yourself that you're actually worthy of it, right? A lot of times taking small actions like maybe setting a budget or outlining a strategy or a plan on how you plan to make that additional income, right? That's evidence that you can use to convince yourself that, you know what, yeah, I am worthy of this. So it takes a little bit of practice, work to reprogram that belief system. But here's the thing. You have to first consciously want it, and you have to be able and willing to put in the work because, you know, remember, this is all an internal operating system. Your internal operating system in terms of the beliefs, right? Your identity in terms of who you believe yourself to be, and the beliefs around it in terms of, I think money is this, I think money is that, I don't think that I'm able to or worthy of making more money, right? All of those, you need to become aware of those and reprogram them. And there's a lot of different tools and techniques to make that happen. And your emotional capacity really outlines and defines how much discomfort, uncertainty, or challenge that you can tolerate without shutting down or resisting. Because when you're able to have a really solid baseline in terms of your emotional state, where when something happens, you don't immediately label it as a huge, massive problem. You look at it as, okay, first accepting it. It is what it is. Okay. What happened? All right. Maybe you have an emotion. You're feeling frustrated. You're feeling sad. Maybe you have a little bit of anger. Acknowledge it, accept it. But then also accept the situation for what it is. But don't let it overtake you, right? It shouldn't be taking over your entire day. It shouldn't be taking over an entire week, right? It should be very simple, like, hey, I'm feeling this, I felt it, and then you're moving on to the next thing, right? You're letting it go. Because once you let it linger, then it starts to affect your frequency, everything that you're sending out. And if you're looking at situations as problems, as huge major things, and you're reacting, right? All of this is sent out through your frequency and then reflected back, more of that, right? So we want to try to be as even keel, balanced as possible, because then you're able to accept and bring on new problems, because you're always going to have problems, okay? There's always going to be problems, but it's about the identity that is meeting and choosing to be, right, facing those problems, right? So like the wrong identity can meet and be at a certain neutral situation and label it a problem. But then another identity can have something happen to them and be like, this is not even really a big deal. It is what it is, right? That's where you want to get at, because your emotions here play a big factor. And a lot of times here, it's just about resetting your nervous system, right? Think about if you're like deep into this feeling. Let's say you're super mad, you're angry, you're like frustrated, you're like, man, I cannot handle this. Take 5 deep breaths. Breathe in for a few and hold. Breathe out for about 5 seconds. Do that about 5 times, and you're going to feel amazingly different. Your nervous system is going to get calmed down. You're not going to feel the anxiety, the anger, whatever you're experiencing. And that's going to help you regulate your emotions, so that when something happens and you normally freak out, right, or like make it a big deal, breathe, right? Calm yourself down, and then you feel like a $1,000,000 right after, and then you can take on whatever comes your way. And the identity boundaries tell a story to yourself in terms of who you believe that you are and what you're capable of, and ultimately what you feel that you deserve. If your identity is small or constrained, like thinking to yourself that you're just an average person, you know, you're not able to become an entrepreneur, I'm just a chill guy, right? That kind of mindset will reflect back into your external reality and reflect back to you all the current limitations that you're setting upon yourself, because you can't embody something outside of that, right? You've essentially boxed yourself into a container and you can't see outside of that, right? You're really just in within those walls. But when you can reframe and expand the container, right? Now you have unlimited possibilities, unlimited potential, right? So the identity here is the most important part. This is the story, the narrative, right? The picture on the wall in terms of the movie screen, and even the projector of what's going on in terms of who you are, right, in the real world. And then we think about risk tolerance. This is crucial because all growth almost always requires you stepping into uncomfortable situations, to uncertainty, to the unknown. If your system shies away from risk, every opportunity that comes your way, you're going to interpret them as risky situations, risky events that I don't need to partake in because something could go wrong, right? Something can happen, but also something great can happen, right? But we're limited to the possibilities because we're not able to see that through that lens. We're only able to see it as a problem, a risk, you know, something that could go wrong. So very important to keep that in mind in terms of risk tolerance. And it doesn't necessarily need to be something where you take massive risk, right? It could be small micro risks that you take. Maybe you've been driving to the gym and taking the same exact route. Well, maybe now you take a different route, right? Something small, something unique and different to change that status quo, because if you're not constantly at least taking micro actions or micro risks, then you're not going to build up enough tolerance for the bigger ones, right? So very important, at least to get started. And then your meaning making system really governs everything in terms of what you interpret and see and label as problems, challenges, opportunities, or whatever you believe them to be. And this is all a loop, right? So if you're taking action and you're not getting a desired result and you're labeling that as failure, then you're going to get consistently stuck in this loop of taking action, not getting the result, the outcome that you want in the beginning, and then labeling that as failure versus labeling that as data, right? That has just been absorbed and learned, right? And then being able to take that data and modify and adjust your actions so that next time you can get your desired result, right? So it's never going to be something where the first time it's going to work out exactly how you believe or how you think it should. There's always going to be iterations. There's always going to be trials and tribulations that happen. But if you consistently take action and you're labeling yourself as a failure, you're just going to be stuck in a loop, right? Of doing the same thing over and over again and wanting and hoping and wishing to get different results. And then finally, the behaviors, right? Your actions that you're taking. And your actions here and your behaviors really all come down to, are they aligned with the identity that you want to embody? They're either aligning with your growth trajectory or they're keeping you exactly where you are, right? In that stagnation of not moving up and maybe not moving down. But at the end of the day, I would say if you're standing still, if you're stagnant, you're going through entropy regardless. Because if you're just standing still, you don't have any action, any activity, and there's no movement in terms of taking risks, taking action, right? Taking opportunities, then over time, you're not only going to stay the same, but your risk tolerance is going to go down. So ultimately, understand that the impossible is simply a version of your reality that your current identity cannot generate. Okay, so now let's go over the 4 laws of impossible manifestation. Let's go ahead and erase the board here. 4 laws of impossible manifestation. Number 1, the law of identity expansion. Number 2, law of emotional coherence. Number 3, law of perceptual shift. How you're seeing things, right? The views, the interpretations of everything that you're experiencing in reality. And then number 4, law of probability activation. Okay, the probability, you need to be able to expect things to happen to you in terms of expect great things to happen. And in the probability field, when you expect things to happen, that's how things collapse into your external reality, right? When you are feeling a certain way, when your identity's in the right place, your actions are in the right place, you're interpreting things in terms of them being positive benefits for you, regardless of the situation, and then you're expecting results, positive outcomes. That's where the probability field is activated, and then those are collapsed into the external reality for you, right? So let's go into each one of these individually. We have the law of identity expansion. Nothing that feels impossible can manifest until your identity expands just enough to hold it. Because if you're trying to manifest more money, a new opportunity, a new partner, but if your current identity is limited and doesn't see outside of the frame, right, the box, the frame that you have, then it's just going to miss all of these opportunities that are coming, right? It needs to be able to expand enough so that it could capture all of those, it can see all of those, it can accept them. Because manifestation isn't about forcing external things to happen to you or to happen for you in the external world. It's about expressing your inner self outwardly, right? And with your internal, that's what's going to create everything that you see in the external. Your current identity is setting a ceiling of what you believe is possible and on what you can create and believe yourself to be able to, create as a whole. And when you're trying to manifest something that's outside of your current identity, that's just like pouring water, right? A huge gallon of water into an 8-ounce cup, right? It's not going to fit. It's going to overflow. You need a bucket, right? You need something large. So that's what I'm talking about in the sense of expanding the frame, right? The frame is currently limited to this identity. You want to expand that, right? And even use your mind. Think of your current identity in your thought processes and beliefs, interpretations, all of that. Think of all of those being like a frame, right, that they're currently in. And your identity specifically here, I want to focus on. If you believe X, Y, and Z about money, about what you're capable of, all of those are within that frame. But once in your mind, you can even imagine and see it, that frame expanding, where now you have no limitations and you have an abundance and an unlimited amount of beliefs and thoughts and perspectives on what you're actually capable of at an identity level, right? And who you can become, then everything expands for you. And then number two, we have the law of emotional coherence. This is a big thing here. The way that I want you to think about this is that your nervous system needs to feel safe and aligned with the reality that you actually want. Anytime you experience emotional resistance like fear, doubt, uncertainty, all of these are creating the emotional blockages from you actually manifesting your desire. And they're collapsing the probability of it actually happening, right? The probability of success, because you're blocking them with your emotions of the fear, the negativity, the anxiety, right? Because if you're instead even keel and you see things as opportunities, as lessons that I can learn, things that I can take away from, right? From a positive mentality and aspect, then that's when everything changes for you, because you're able to sustain, right, a certain emotional field, right, emotional mental state that tells the universe, right, in reality itself, that you're capable of handling this. Because think about this way, when you have like $10,000 a month income, or you have $100,000 a month income, all of those come with problems. They're just different levels of problems, different size of problems. But still, if you think about it and you picture yourself in the aspect of you making $100,000 a month, those problems to somebody making $1,000 a month is just like unfathomable, right? You're like, impossible. However, that same person, right, can be making that $100,000 a month, and they would be at a very even keel type of mental state, because it's just another day in the neighborhood for them, right? They've expanded the lens, right? The frame in terms of what they believe is possible, and their nervous system can handle that. So keep in mind here, this is really the nervous system regulation, and breathing is the biggest and best way that you can really calm your nervous system, right? Breathe in for a few seconds to calm you down, because you're inevitably going to feel emotions. One moment you're going to feel angry, next moment you're going to feel stressed, next moment you're going to feel sad, frustrated. All of those things are normal feelings, right? But it's about how you, number one, are interpreting that and attaching the meaning to it, right? But then also, how are you handling that? And it all comes down to calming yourself down, right, with the nervous system breathing, so that you can get back to level state. And then we have number three. This is the law of perceptual state. What you perceive drastically influences what becomes possible. And changing your interpretations from huge, big problems to small, little, minor inconveniences, that's going to make a world of difference. Because now something isn't this huge, massive problem, right? Like, it's not ruining your life. It's just like, this little thing right here, man, it is what it is. You know, the way that you can really also look at this is zoom out. Zoom out as like, think of yourself as being like on top of one of these satellites up in space, looking down at that little problem, okay, at that problem as a whole. And it's like a little tiny piece of land. That's how you want to look at problems, okay? They're small little minor inconveniences, and I am above them, right? That's going to immediately be able to have you look at it from a whole different lens, so that you are separated from your problem. Because at the end of the day, all of those problems, challenges, roadblocks, or whatever they may be, they're all just stepping stones, right? And the way that you can think about this also is like, I'm just passing by, right? You have a problem, you have an issue. Okay, this is what's going on right now. I accept it, but this is not going to last long because I'm just passing by, right? This problem that's here right now, it is what it is. I'm just passing by. That is super powerful when you take on that perspective. And then number 4, the law of probability activation. This is where the constantly imagining, the embodying, the planning, the vision board, the expecting the success to happen, right? All of that is what really is playing a factor in the probability field in terms of it actually happening, right? Because you have your intention of what you want to accomplish. You're expecting it. Your emotions are regulated. Your behavior, your actions are actually congruent, and you're taking the action, making the moves happen, right? For you to get the outcome that you want, and you are expecting it, right? You expect success no matter what. All of that plays a factor in it actually happening and manifesting itself in the physical reality. Okay, so now let's go over why most people can't manifest the impossible. So let's go ahead and erase the board here. Why most people can't manifest the impossible. Number 1 is because their identity is too small. Number 2, emotions are out of sync. They're sporadic. They're all over the place. They're not being regulated. Number 3, interpretations are trapped in fear. Fear of what could go wrong. And then number 4, there's no action towards probability. Right? In order for the item or the thing, the event, the circumstance to manifest, there has to be action, right? There has to be some sort of deliberate, conscious intention, behavior, action, right? Alignment that you're actually doing so that the probability of it actually is happening in the real world. Because whatever it is that you want already exists. It's out there, right? But in order for you to collapse that probability into the external, you need to have all of these in check. You need to have your identity be the right size. You need to have your emotions be even keel, where your nervous system can actually sustain it, right? Your interpretations need to be positive, opportunistic, uplifting, and then your actions are the ones that are going to combine with your expectations for that probability to collapse into the external world. With the identity being too small, we talked about where you have a gallon or a jug of water, right? And you're trying to pour that into an 8-ounce cup. It's going to overflow. Your identity is not large enough, right? You have a small frame of what you can see yourself as, you know, who you are. And so this is where you need to expand your identity. A lot of this is done through affirmations, I am statements, right? Writing down in your journal, meditating. And one of the biggest things that's worked for me is creating affirmations that I've written for myself and then recording my voice on those affirmations and then adding binaural beats to the background and then putting that all together, combining it, and then listening to that in the mornings and before I go to bed. And that right there is a powerful method to help you with reprogramming your beliefs and your identity so that you can see yourself as somebody who has the potential to accomplish big and better things, right? So you can expand your identity. And then number 2, you have your emotions that are out of sync, right? Your emotions are super high and they're super low, right? You can be super positively happy one moment, and then the next moment you can be depressed, sad, full of anxiety. And the key thing here is for you to become aware, right, of what's going on. Just observe your emotions. What's happening? When something happens, how do you experience it? What emotions are popping up? Look at your daily life. Look at how you're interacting with people. How are people interacting with you? Are they making you feel a certain way? You know, do you feel like you're being disrespected? Do you feel like you're being bullied? Like, what is all of that that's going on that's causing you to experience certain emotions? Think about the aspect of wanting to make $10,000 a month, but you're only making a few $1,000s a month, right? When you can sit there and think about and look at perhaps your bank account and look at it and see that you only have a few $1,000s in there. If you can't look at that and be able to imagine you having $10,000 in there, and then once you're seeing that $10,000 in there, feeling nonchalant in terms of like, yeah, it is what it is. I expect that to be there. When you can do that, that's when so many things change for you, because your emotions are not super riled up and they're not super down. They're just like right in the middle where it's expected. Like it's just another day in the neighborhood, because you'll eventually reach that, and then that becomes a norm. And then you hit 20, 30, 40, 50, and then it's just like another day in the neighborhood, right? But in the beginning, there is a little bit of like anxiety there, right? And you're like, I don't know if I can make that, and if I can manage that, or if I can imagine that in terms of it being in my bank account. But you need to be able to regulate these emotions, right? And it all starts with regulating your nervous system. And then we look at the interpretations, where most people are trapped in fear in terms of their interpreting events, situations as negative, as things happening to me, and having a victim mentality versus things happening for me so I can learn, so I can understand what went wrong and correct it and fix it so it doesn't happen again, right? So all of these internal narratives, all of these interpretations are shaping what actually happens to you, right? They shape your experiences, they're shaping your circumstances, and they're shaping your future expectations of what you can expect in the future, which is ultimately just going through a whole entire loop, right? If any time that you have a setback or a situation that doesn't work out in your favor, if you're constantly interpreting that as failure, then that's going to be a whole entire loop that consistently runs, versus if you look at something and acknowledge that it didn't work out, but you then take that on as data and a learning experience, then that ultimately is going to stop that loop from happening, in terms of you constantly having situations that happen, right? Outcomes, and you labeling them as failure, versus from an empowering mentality of, what is the data telling me? What can I learn? What can I take away from this? That changes the entire game for you. And then we have number 4, which is the no action towards probability. Manifestation requires aligned action. You have to take the necessary steps to make it happen, right? Because you can have the vision board, you can have the imagination, right? You can think about and see all of exactly what you want to accomplish, what you want to manifest. But if you don't have anything in terms of action or behavior that you are including into your actual manifestation that you want to accomplish, then it's all just going to be theory, and it's all just going to be out there in the probability field and never collapsing into external reality, because you're not taking the physical action required for it to actually manifest here, right? Because that's where a lot of manifestation advice really goes wrong here. And it's just one piece of the puzzle. And I wouldn't say it goes wrong. It's more of like they don't give you the full story, right? Because you want the feminine aspect of it in terms of the vision, the creativity, the imagination, all of that, right? Feeling good, feeling the emotions. But if you don't have the action associated with it in terms of the steps that you need to do and take to actually make that happen in the real world, then it's always all just going to be in your imagination, a theory, because there's no physical action in the physical reality that's being had. Okay, so now I want to go over the impossible manifestation method. This is a method here that I developed, and I want to walk through how exactly this works here. The impossible manifestation method. Okay, here is the expansion loop. You want to envision, embody, then expand, then execute. Then this gives you evidence, and then this is all reinforced. So we have the envisioning, the embodying of the identity, we have the expanding, we have the execution side, and we have the evidence that we're gaining through all of the activity that we're doing, right? All the actions that we're taking. We're getting data. It's not failure, it's just data. And then all of this is being reinforced. This is the expansion loop. And it all starts with the envisioning, right? You have to envision yourself from a new identity. And this is where you start to think about and you ask yourself questions in terms of the future version of me, that identity that I want to embody and take in and hold. What are they doing? How are they thinking about the situation that I'm going through or the experience that I want to have, right? Like, how are they feeling, thinking, looking, interpreting everything that I'm going through, right? Like, if they were here right now and I was them, right, experiencing my reality, how would they be reacting to all of this? Because that right there, when you can have those conversations with yourself internally and think from that perspective, that lens of that future version of you who's already figured it out, who already understands all these situations and problems and whatever it may be that you're going through, like they understand it all. They've gone through it, right? That's where you really want to get the embodiment and the understanding of that is the person that I am, right? That's the identity that I want to hold. And then that is what stretches your identity from who you currently are to the future version of you that you know is capable of so much more. And then we have the embodiment. This is where you want to embody the emotions. You want to feel the feelings of already having what you want to accomplish, right? Because the emotion is the energetic fuel that makes your vision feel real, and it activates your nervous system to support the change. And some of the things that you can do here is practice gratitude, stay present and grounded and calm, right? When situations happen, practice breathing techniques that I mentioned in terms of breathing in for 5 seconds, 3 to 5 seconds, and then blowing out your mouth for another few seconds. And gratitude in the sense of, number one, just being grateful for everything that you have, right? Just being alive for another day, for breathing, for having everything that you have in this physical world, and the probability of reality that isn't here yet, but I know is there for me to have, right? So being grateful for all of that, right? Having that type of mentality, having that type of perspective, just gratitude and grateful for everything, no matter what, helps you keep a really balanced baseline emotional state. And you want to embody the feeling, the sensation of already achieving the goal that you want, right? There's that aspect, but then also there's the aspect of seeing that already being manifested in your mind, but then also just being very even keel about it. Like, yeah, I expect that to happen. Like, that's how it's supposed to happen, right? Regardless. That's the whole expectation aspect of this, is you have to expect things to happen to you on a positive manner, positive note, no matter what. Like, yes, I expect success to happen to me. It is what it is. This is who I am. This is part of my reality. And when you really start to understand how powerful that is to expect success, then guess what? Success starts to come your way because you have collapsed that probability, right? In terms of knowing that this is going to happen. So guess what? It actually does. It's kind of weird. It's kind of interesting to think about it, right? But weird in a good way. And then we want to go to expand. This is where we're expanding our identity. And there's a lot of different techniques and tools to use here, right? One of the things is the I am statements, journaling, affirmations, questioning your beliefs, right? Questioning the operating system that you're currently running internally. Like, whose beliefs are these? Where did they come from? And why are they necessarily true, right? Is this something that came from my mom, from my dad, from my cousins, from conventional wisdom out there in society? Did I watch a YouTube video, right? Questioning all of that so that you can understand what is the root of that in terms of where did it come from, and then so you can replace it. And then we want to execute, because actions are what collapse probabilities into existence. They're collapsing it all into actual reality, right? Physical external reality. They're confirming and activating your expanded identity and emotional state. And this all starts with taking micro actions. They don't need to be huge, massive leaps. They just need to have a little bit of resemblance of like, okay, I did this. I planned out my day. I planned my schedule for the next month. I laid out my to-do list for the next week. Let's say you want to start a business. I created a business plan and I outlined exactly what I needed to do, right? They don't need to be massive big things, right? Because the key thing here is that you want to build momentum, right? You want to continually build off the previous day, right? The actions that are slowly building up to ultimately accomplishing your objective, right? Your goal. And all of these are creating evidence through these small little wins, right? That you're doing in terms of just doing exactly what you say you're going to do. And I would even say this. This is truly powerful here. When you can really think about this and take action on what you say that you're going to do, that is so, so powerful. Like, this is something that I recommend that you do. I challenge you to do this. Every time that you say that you're going to do something, do it. Okay? Don't question it. Like, maybe you say that you want to go to the gym, and maybe you come to the next day and you're like, I'm feeling tired. I don't really feel like going to the gym. I don't really feel good. I'm sore from the previous couple days workouts, right? All of those things are going to come into your mind. But do exactly what you say you're going to do. And over time, I'm telling you, this is going to change the game for you, because it's programming your mental operating system, right? It's programming your internal operating system as a whole, that you are somebody who does exactly what he says or she says that they're going to do. And you start building up the will, okay? The will in terms of whenever you say that you're going to take a specific action, you're doing it. And then it just becomes this natural looping habit of, you say that tomorrow you're going to plan your day, and you actually do it. And all of this builds up huge momentum. So truly, truly powerful. Highly recommend. Even small little tiny things. Say that you're going to do something and do it. It's really that simple. Just do it. Like, I'm thinking about the Shia LaBeouf video where he's just like, just do it, right? That's the key thing here. And it's really just that simple. Like, say you're going to do something, plan it, and literally just do it. And you'll be amazed at how you build momentum and how you start to easily now take action on things, because you're the kind of person that does what they say that they're going to do. And then number 5, this is the evidence loop. This is through all of this, you're taking the action, you're expanding your identity, right? You're embodying the emotions, you're envisioning the big picture, all of that, right? If you're doing all of this, then that evidence should show up automatically, because every action, every result that you're getting, no matter how small or large they may be, are all feeding back into your internal operating system, which are strengthening your identity, your belief system, and your emotional coherence. Really think about celebrating even just these small wins, right? Just like celebrate doing something that you say you're going to do. And this creates the evidence to really show that you really want to expand your identity and that you want to embody that, right? Because it needs to manifest itself, all of this, in the real world, right? It needs to be actually reinforced through all of these different things that you're doing. But the evidence comes from you feeling good. You seeing things as a W in terms of just taking small micro actions. And then you seeing, your calendar outlined and planned out. Like, all of those things make you feel good about yourself. You accomplished something, you did something, and that's all creating evidence to build upon your new found and strengthened identity. The impossible does not resist you. It waits for your identity to expand. It waits for your emotions to align. It waits for your perceptions to shift. It waits for your actions to signal readiness. The impossible is not a dream. It is a level. And when you upgrade your current internal operating system, the impossible becomes the next logical step.